I worked at a beachfront resort in Florida. I once had a guest call the front desk at 11 p.m. in a complete rage. He was screaming that he couldn't sleep because of the noise machine outside his window. I was confused because we don't have white noise machines. I went to his room to investigate. He pointed aggressively at the balcony door. I opened it, and the sound of crashing waves filled the room. I told him, "Sir, that is the Atlantic Ocean." He looked at me like I was an idiot and said, "Well, turn it off. I paid for peace and quiet." He actually expected me to turn off the ocean. We had a guest check-in who was absolutely furious about his room. He came storming down to the lobby holding his key card, face red as a beet. He yelled, "I paid for a room with a view. I walk in there and someone has bricked up the window." "It's just a wall." I checked the system. He was in a standard room but definitely had a window. I walked up with him. He marched in, pointed at the bricked up wall and stood there triumphantly. I walked past him, reached out and opened the heavy blackout curtains that were drawn shut. The sun streamed in. He didn't say a word, just sat on the bed and looked at his feet. I had a lady call down to the front desk, complaining that her room was infested with ghosts. She sounded terrified. She said every time she walked into the bathroom, the lights would turn on by themselves, and when she left, they would turn off, proving a spirit was watching her. I had to explain to a grown woman for about 5 minutes what motion sensor lights were. She didn't believe me at first and insisted we send a priest or a manager. Finally, I sent maintenance up to tape over the sensor so she could use the manual switch. She left a review saying we had a supernatural problem. A man came to the concierge desk holding a map of the city that we provide to all guests. He looked very confused and slightly agitated. He pointed to the big red star on the map that says, "You are here," and asked, "Okay, but how does this map know where I am? Is it tracking my phone?" I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He was concerned about privacy. I had to explain that the map is static, printed on paper, and the star indicates the hotel's fixed location, not his personal movement. He seemed skeptical and threw the map in the trash just to be safe. I worked the night shift at a hotel in a ski resort. A guy came in at 3 a.m., stumbling drunk, and demanded his key. I asked for his name and ID. He couldn't find his ID, but gave me his name. I looked it up, no reservation. I looked up similar spellings, nothing. He started screaming, "I know I'm staying here, look at the key!" He slammed a key card on the desk. It was a card for the Holiday Inn down the street. We were a Marriott. When I pointed this out, he accused us of changing the sign on the building while he was out drinking just to trick him. A guest called asking for a wake-up call at 7 a.m. No problem, I set it up in the system. At 7:15 a.m., he comes storming down to the desk, still in his pajamas, screaming that nobody woke him up. I checked the log, the phone rang, and he picked it up. He yelled, "Yeah, the phone rang, but nobody came to the room to shake me awake. How am I supposed to get up if you just call me?" Apparently, in his mind, a wake-up call involved a staff member physically entering his locked room and gently jostling him until he woke up like a butler in a movie. During a particularly foggy week in San Francisco, a guest demanded a full refund for his 3-night stay. His reasoning? The fog. He claimed that our website showed photos of the Golden Gate Bridge clearly. And since he couldn't see the bridge from his room because of the weather, we were guilty of false advertising. I tried to explain that we cannot control meteorological events. He wasn't having it. He said, "You should have giant fans to blow the fog away for the premium guests." He was 100% serious. He eventually charged back the cost on his credit card. We had a family staying in a suite that had a kitchenette. The mother called down, absolutely livid, saying the microwave was broken and had ruined their expensive leftovers. She claimed it was spinning, but not heating anything up. Maintenance went up to check it out. The maintenance guy came back, trying not to laugh. He said she had put the food inside the microwave, but instead of setting the timer, she was just physically spinning the turntable plate with her hand and wondering why the food was still cold. She thought it was a manual crank microwave. A couple on their honeymoon called reception to complain about the pervert in the room next to them. They said every time they looked through the peephole in the connecting door, there was a man staring right back at them, mocking their movements. I went up to the room to mediate. I walked in, looked at the connecting door, and realized it was a full-length mirror attached to the wardrobe door. The husband had been staring at himself in the mirror, getting angry at his own reflection, thinking it was a neighbor mimicking him. I once had a guest complain that the water in the pool was too wet. I asked him to clarify, thinking maybe he meant too cold or too much chlorine. No, he said, it's too heavy. It sticks to my clothes when I get out. I've been to pools where the water just rolls off. I am still, to this day, unsure what kind of hydrophobic liquid he has been swimming in previously. Maybe mercury? He left a comment card saying the pool needed to be drier. Working in a hotel in the UK, we had an American tourist who was very angry about the electrical outlets. He called maintenance because his plug wouldn't fit. We brought him an adapter. Then he called back, screaming that his hairdryer wasn't working fast enough. It turns out he was trying to plug a 110V US hairdryer into a 240 EV UK outlet. But the best part? He blamed the laziness of British electricity. He said, "Your electricity is too slow. In America, the power comes out faster." He fried his device and blamed the voltage speed. A guest came to the desk and asked what time the midnight buffet started. I looked at him and said, "Sir, we don't have a midnight buffet." He pulled up our website on his phone and pointed to a line that said, "Front desk open 24 hours." He interpreted front desk as all-you-can-eat buffet. I had to explain that it just meant I was standing there all night, not that there was a feast being served. He was genuinely heartbroken and asked if I had any snacks in my pocket. We had a newly installed voice-controlled elevator in a high-tech hotel, or so a prankster guest had convinced everyone by putting up a fake sticker. I watched on the security camera as a businessman in a suit stood in the elevator for 10 minutes shouting, "Lobby! Lobby!" at the buttons. Eventually he came to the desk, after finally pushing the button, and complained that the voice recognition software was racist because it didn't understand his accent. I had to gently break it to him that the elevator is, and always has been, button-operated. A woman came to the desk holding a remote control, looking very frustrated. She said, "I've been trying to call my son for an hour, and this phone is broken. The buttons are too squishy." She was holding the TV remote. She was holding it up to her ear and typing numbers into the channel selection. I pointed to the actual landline phone on the nightstand, which she had piled her clothes on top of. She said, "Oh, I thought that was an antique decoration." I work at a hotel that is technically near the airport, but we are not at the airport. A guest called me from the terminal screaming, "I'm at the gate waiting for my room." "Where is it?" She thought the hotel was inside the plane or the gate area. She booked an airport hotel and assumed she slept there before boarding. I had to explain she needed to take a shuttle to the actual building. She said, "That defeats the purpose of flying." A very wealthy-looking woman called the front desk to complain about the unauthorized animal in the courtyard. She said it was huge, ugly, and making terrible noises. She demanded we remove it immediately or she would sue. The animal was a statue of a horse, a bronze statue. It had been there for 20 years. She insisted she saw it moving. We assumed she had mixed some sleeping pills with a lot of wine because the statue definitely did not move. I checked in a guy who asked for a wake-up call. I asked him when. He said, "When the sun hits the bed." I told him I couldn't really predict that accurately due to clouds, season. So could he give me a time? He got annoyed and said, "Just put me in a room where the sun rises at 9 a.m. I tried to explain that the sun rises at the same time for everyone in the city, around 6:30 a.m. He called me unhelpful and said he would just keep the curtains closed until 9. A guest called down saying he was trapped in his room. He said the door wouldn't open. I asked if he had unlocked the deadbolt. He said yes. I asked if he tried the handle. He said yes. I went up with the master key, thinking the lock battery died. I get there, push the door open easily. He was pulling the door. There was a giant sign on the back of the door that said, "Push to exit" in big letters. He argued that in his country, doors pull. We have a strict no smoking policy. A guest set off the smoke alarm and the fire department came. We found cigarette butts and ash everywhere in the room. We charged him the $250 cleaning fee. He marched down to dispute it, claiming he wasn't smoking cigarettes. He said, "I was burning incense to cleanse the room of negative energy. That's religious." The incense was Marlboro Reds. He literally held the pack in his pocket while arguing. A lady called down to housekeeping, screaming that someone stole her car. She parked it out front, and now it was gone. She was about to call the police. I asked if she gave her keys to the guy in the red vest. She said, "Yes." I said, "Ma'am, that is the valet. He parked your car in our garage." She paused and said, "Well, I didn't tell him to. I thought he was just holding the keys for safekeeping." I had a guest complain that the outdoor pool was deceptive because it was inside a greenhouse structure. It was sunny out and he wanted to get a tan. He demanded we remove the glass roof immediately. It's a permanent structural roof. When I told him we couldn't dismantle the building for his tanning session, he asked for a refund on his sunscreen since he wouldn't be needing it. We have a breakfast buffet that ends at 10:30 a.m. A guy walks in at 11:15 a.m., sees the staff cleaning up and goes ballistic. He demands eggs. The chef tells him the kitchen is switched to lunch prep. He says, "I'm on vacation. Time doesn't exist here." He legitimately tried to argue that because he was in a leisure mindset, the hotel clocks should pause for him. He ended up eating a stale bagel from the trash bin in protest. A guest came to the front desk, holding the "Do Not Disturb" sign. He asked, "If I put this on the door, how does the maid know when I'm naked?" I was stunned. I explained that the sign means nobody enters, period. He seemed disappointed. He said, "I thought it meant not carefully." I am still disturbed by what he was hoping for. I worked at a hotel in Las Vegas. A guest complained that his room view was fake. He was looking at the Eiffel Tower, the replica at the Paris Hotel. He said, "I know we aren't in France. Why are you lying to people?" He wanted to move to a room that faced the real America. I moved him to a room facing a parking garage. He was much happier. A man called down because he couldn't get the Wi-Fi to work on his laptop. I tried to walk him through the login steps. He kept saying, "It's not fitting." After 10 minutes, I went to his room. He was trying to shove his room key card into the USB slot of his computer. He thought the key to the internet was the physical door key. When I explained it was a password, he said, "Technology is ruining hospitality."